Good evening. I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Watching the battlefronts. The battlefronts in the Middle East and the battlefronts tonight surprisingly moving to North America because of the Canadian Al-Qaeda-Iranian link. There is additional information on the Tsarnaev brothers. I will speak later in the show to Moscow. The latest from Dagestan gives us a very mixed picture of the notion of the Tsarnaev brothers as terrorists and how the word terrorist is interpreted in Dagestan, a small nation, North Caucasus on the shore of the Caspian Sea, where there, I am told, more than 1,000 mothers of terrorists. And in the North Caucasus, terrorists usually means that you've participated in or suspect of participating in a bomb attack on the Russian authorities and you've been disappeared. Maybe you'll return. Maybe you're in a jail somewhere in Russia. Maybe you've gone to the Middle East. Maybe you've gone to Syria. I flag the fact that there's a pipeline from Dagestan and Chechnya, which is abuts Dagestan, a pipeline of jihadists flowing right to the Middle East, right to Syria. I also flag that information over these last days, not confirmed, is that in a phone call listened into by the FSB, that's Russian security, the mother of the Tsarnaev brothers was in conversation with Tamerlan, the deceased Tsarnaev brother, talking about going to Palestine. Flag all of that. Right now, we go to the Taliban in Afghanistan, Pakistan. Bill Roggio and Tom Joscelyn of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies joins me. Gentlemen, a very good evening to you. Bill, I start with you because your recent report on Long War Journal said that the Taliban, here it is springtime, and they're planning a spring offensive, but this time with a twist. Insider attacks. Good evening, Bill. Is this a green on blue, and do we believe they're going to turn up the pressure as the U.S. looks to exit?
Good evening, John. Yes, that's correct. I don't think that the Taliban are going to have the success that they had last year. We had, I believe, over 40 recorded insider attacks. And again, this is what ISAF tells us. Usually the ones that are recorded are the attacks where someone's killed or sometimes wounded. ISAF says the rest of those numbers are classified. The meaning for that is because the attacks are probably far, far greater than what ISAF wants to admit. It's going to be harder because there's far fewer troops and there's far fewer troops partnered with Afghan security forces. However, there's been 5 such attacks so far this year, regardless of a drastic reduction. The Taliban not only said that they're going to do these green on blue attacks, and that is the first time that they've been explicit about it as part of their spring offensive. They also said they're going to step up attacks on coalition installations. They put a lot of emphasis on attacking foreigners this year, whereas last year was a lot more attacking the Afghan government security forces. That's still part of their strategy, but a lot of this spring offensive information that they put out was to what they want to do is they want to show that they're driving us out of Afghanistan. It's a very morale boost for their people, and it shows the Afghan people that they're continuing to stay in the fight. We're not.
And we want to mention stay in the fight right now, Bill. Is there any reason to believe that they've increased the pace on the battlefield? This is terror attacks or martyr attacks. Do we see any concerted effort to mount large-scale operations?
What we've seen so far, the first quarter of this year, is that attacks are up by 47% and deaths are up by 30% from just this first quarter compared to last. ISAF stopped reporting. They said that they're not issuing reports on numbers anymore after they were basically caught. I'm not going to say it was intentional or not, but the statistics from late last year were actually wrong, and they kept telling us there was a reduction in attacks when anything but the attacks pretty much stayed the same, and now they're starting to increase. So yeah, the Taliban are demonstrating that they can continue the offensive. That NATO gains, as they claim, are pretty much non-existent.
Tom, a very good evening to you. To the Syrian battlefront, over this last week, there's been a debate in the newspapers, never a good place to find an intelligence-gathering debate, over chemical weapons. The particular charge made by an Israeli general at a conference more than a week ago was lethal chemical weapons used by the Assad regime in Syria. Can you confirm or challenge any of those lines, lethal chemical weapons? Good evening, Tom.
Well, good evening, John. The chemical weapons thing to me is almost somewhat of a red herring, because obviously the Syrian regime and the rebels have been using lethal force for a while now. You have over 70,000 people dead, And the release of sarin gas or a similar type of toxic chemical is not the only way you kill people, obviously. So it's just the means to an end. And the bloodbath has been ongoing for a long time now. So it's all sort of, this whole debate over a red line and whether or not it was crossed in terms of chemical weapons. Well, when you're killing thousands and thousands of people, it doesn't really matter to me how you're killing them. In terms of whether or not the sarin gas has been used, there are a lot of sources, or other chemical weapons have been used. There are a lot of sources saying they are. Obviously, we don't have firsthand confirmation of that,
right.
But there's a lot of reporting coming out of Syria that suggests that that's the case. I think really what this all comes down to is that Syria is a mess, that I don't think the U.S. has a good, viable ally at this point, an easy one that it can identify and assist. I think it may have had that early on. But at this point, it doesn't. And so the whole chemical weapons thing is really just a new level of nastiness. But this is the killing fields of today's jihad.
And right now, the situation in Syria, I've had reporting that the Alawite forces have been on the offensive around the Homs area, cutting off the resistance, the rebels, the jihadists from the Turkish border. Do you see any large-scale battles going on in the Homs or Homa area right now from your reporting, Tom?
Yeah, I think that's consistent with what we're seeing in the fighting there. I saw something on jihadi propaganda forums tonight, actually, along those lines, actually calling for reinforcements in that area.
Right.
The bottom line is right now, when you take out a map, as Bill and I have, and you look at the whole picture of the thing, what's amazing is just how dispersed the jihadist forces are, engaging Assad's forces and others all throughout Syria. What's amazing is you have basically, at any given moment, on any given day, you can have a battle flare up, and that's truly remarkable, I think, in terms of the scale of the fight inside Syria right now.
Bill, I go back to you just to flag this because we're going to move to North America next. Details on the al-Qaeda Iranian plot in Canada a week ago. You have a new headline up, Haqqani Network's Taj Mir Jawad subgroup targeted in raid. What is this, Bill? Is this a special Taliban outfit?
This is an outfit from the Haqqani Network, which is basically a Taliban subgroup, also closely allied with Al-Qaeda. Taj Mir Jawad is a co-leader of a group that's also called the Kabul Attack Network. They're the ones that are responsible for organizing and funding and directing those attacks inside the Afghan capital, and they have a network in and around the capital that facilitate the attacks. It's only the second time this group's been mentioned since 2011. Taj Mir Jawad is a top-level Haqqani Network leader, and one thing I've noticed over the last, say, year and a half is there's been a marked decrease of targeting of Haqqani Network leaders, particularly in the drone strikes in Pakistan. We used to go after Siraj Haqqani, the operational commander, and his brothers all the time, and there's been only one major strike that targeted these guys in the last 18 months that I could tell. Any reason for that, Bill? The Pakistan government objecting? Are they out of drones, Bill? I don't have an explanation for that. I really just sort of noticed this trend after looking at this. So I'm still asking questions. I suspect that it may be pressure from the Pakistani government. The Haqqanis are the golden boys of the Pakistanis, and I don't have an explanation as to I can't believe that the U.S. would actually listen to this. But after I watch how we disengage from Iraq and are disengaging from Afghanistan, nothing would surprise me at this point. Bill Roggio, the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, Tom Joscelyn, the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. You will all recall April 22nd, Canadian officials revealed that two young men, 30 and 35 years old, residents in Canada, educated, Jiheb Essaguer, originally from Tunis area, I believe, and Raid Jasser, were arrested on the basis of a plot against a train traveling to the United States. There were remarks made pointing to not just attacks on the United States, but links to Al-Qaeda in Iran. When we come back, more details about that threatened plot in Canada, North America. I'm John Batchelor. This is The John Batchelor Show.